A brand new season of Champ Car Racing shortly underway. I'm Rick James, Liv Hayward by my side, and the ABN Champ Cars are running from iRacing's Sebring. Unbelievable competition about to take place at, frankly, a gorgeous racetrack with some gorgeous race cars. I'm excited. I have been waiting for this for weeks since I found out that I would be privileged enough to be sitting alongside Liv Hayward. And Liv, welcome to Sebring.
Welcome to sunny Florida and a scorching track here tonight. Of course, we're expecting Sebring and this area to always be pretty hot. We're running 38 degrees Celsius on the track temp. That is right around a ton in Fahrenheit. Not the hottest I've seen this track, but it's still going to be tricky for these drivers to navigate, especially on those alternate tyres. So strategy always a factor. I can't wait to see how they handle it tonight.
Well, because we have so many new drivers in this season, it's genuinely interesting to find out who's going to be good, who's not going to be good. Looking at our practice times right now, Tucker Sawyer in the 1.9 leads Nick Pressey by 44 one-thousandths of a second. What do we say? Well, is that 44 one-thousandths or 100s? Here we go already with my inept math. Let's say 4.5 tenths at the front of the tree ahead of Brooklyn's Nick Pressey. And then we go to one of the first rookies we're going to talk about tonight, Liv, the Australian Zach Mitchell. The Oz is just 1.5 seconds off of that top spot, but it's only practice. With only a couple of minutes remaining, we still know absolutely nothing about how these cars are going to perform.
Yeah, and of course, with it being practice, we still have our push to pass fully enabled for drivers to get a feel for where they don't want to use it and how much it affects the both the top speed and, of course, the traction. You've got to remember that you've got to end up bringing that power in somehow out of these tricky hairpins on all the tyres. That could be really tough. And also your fuel usage. There's a very restricted tank here of just 55%. We're talking 38.5 litres, about 10 gallons all these drivers are going to have access to. So any extra fuel burnt on that button is gonna be costing you. You've got to be careful about it.
Practice shortly coming to a close, and if you just tuned in, you have not missed a thing. Practice is going to wind down. Qualifying is going to begin, and we're going to see which drivers are going to be out on the track, testing the track early, testing the track later in that 10-minute qualifying session. Looking at the track temp, Liv, it's not going to fluctuate much during qualifying. It's going to stay at a steady 77 degrees, but with drivers that have joined our session early, drivers that have joined the session late, I think we're going to see the amount of practice that drivers have got. For example, looking at the driver in the 80 car, Christina Ryan, she's fourth on the charts, but she's got 19 laps worth of practice so far. I think she's going to be one of the ones to watch in qualifying.
Yeah, and of course, our Season 2 champion, we have two returning champions currently in the field. That is the 80 of Christina Ryan and the 96 Boss Lady Carmen Sienna. So they're looking to try and become the first two-time champions of the series. And Christina Ryan, in fact, is the first one who's going to make a run out of pit lane for the start of our 20-minute open qualifying session. And those are primary tyres on board the number 80. Of course, one of the rules in the series, you have to start on the tyre you set your fastest qualifying lap on. And so a sighter here for Christina Ryan to see whether they're going to be helpful. You see some of these other drivers coming out of the pit lane. I think most of them going for the primaries right now. Bradley Wright going for the alternates. So expect the number 3 to have some really fast times early in the session, but the drivers could end up going the same way later on.
Bradley Wright, one of those rookies that we're going to be mentioning often this season. As we're on board with Christina Ryan in that 8-0, the American pilot wants to go further and faster into this qualifying session. Interesting that she's going out so early, but the track was just covered in some shade, in some darkness with these clouds. So obviously, Liv, that means the track is going to be cooler. The drivers are going to want to drive on a cooler racetrack and get better grip. The former ABN World Champion, the Season 2 champion, will shortly be starting her lap. And other than Christina Ryan, Liv, who else is on your radar?
Well, at the top of the board, we had Tucker Sawyer and Nicholas Pressey, both veterans of the series as well. Nicholas Pressey especially, a fantastic all-rounder, although I'm sure wishing we had more ovals as we did last season. It's a 50-50 split here. But there's a lot of big names here, and the key strategy here is going to be getting laps in, getting the fuel burn off. It's a fit setup. You start with 10 gallons in your car. There's an incentive to keep the thing clean, to not end up in any trouble, so that you can get those really fast laps at the end of the stint on a lower fuel tank, where you might bolt on a fresh set of alternates and go for pole.
Because it's such a long session, I'm curious to see what drivers are going to put their fastest laps at the beginning of the session and then put their fastest laps at the end of the session as well, or somewhere in between. But of course, the sun's now coming out. It's a bit brighter on the racetrack, so drivers are going to have to pick and choose. Maybe put in a fast lap now, possibly one later. Still on board with the 80 of Christina Ryan and Liv. As she's going through the racetrack here, take us for a lap around Sebring and kind of put into perspective what makes this track so challenging.
Yeah, so we're coming out of Tower here, coming towards the Le Mans complex, and there's a lot of bumps. You've got to get it through this left-hander and then right down into second gear, try and ride as much of that curve as possible. But there's a very harsh jump on the inside edge of the curve that you do not want to hook your tire onto. Get the power down this back straightaway. You see the bumps just from this cam. This is one of the smoother parts of the racetrack, honestly, and it's still jostling. You want to try and pick your point into Sunset, turning in before you hit the brakes. Now, very narrow entry for the 80 of Christina Ryan. Get back on the power, down to about second gear for Sunset, then turn one, maybe the trickiest on the circuit. You've got to use this building on the right as a bit of a reference. Throw it in just a dab of brake, fourth gear. Careful of the understeer, especially this setup is not particularly steering friendly. Down to first gear now through this section. Use as much of the curves you can without unsettling the car. It's a narrow entry into this corner and then back on the power. This is a prime overtaking spot with push to pass in the race. But for Christina, who's currently sat second on the board, it's just flat out down into the hairpin, down to first gear. Try and use a little bit of that curb, straighten out your entry, and then back on the power. And we're just going to come through to the last edge before we complete a full circuit of the course here with Christina Ryan. Break at about the 4, a little bit later. Down to first gear, a little bit of a moment there as you see the bumps, trying to get the car stopped on them. Avoid those curbs, they can spin you out. And then you've got to come through from that previous corner. You enter a bit of an angle into Tower. And we're finished up with one lap. Christina Ryan, not the tidiest there, and she, with a 142.9, is a little bit off the pace of Tucker Sawyer and co. But there's still 15 minutes left in this session, and she's a driver that I think can very much warm into this one. She's got that experience under her belt, 5 wins, 4 pole positions in the series, and she's known to strike at the end of those sessions and really make that run. Maybe on the alternates if she wants to try and start from the front of the field. Matthias Martinelli
out of the final corner. I'm so sorry.
Here. Christina Ryan will finish her lap. Is it going to be an improvement? It is by 0.3 of a second, it looks like. But she won't jump a spot. He's just going to slide right behind Zach Mitchell in the number 69.
Mitchell right now running in that 4th position, and 142.13 so far, still the quickest time. Nick Pressey, a quarter of a second off of Tucker Sawyer, and then the Argentinian, Matthias Macramini, in the 777. Trying to make his way a bit further higher than that 3rd position out of that 4th corner. I'm sorry, I say the 4th corner, the final corner, not necessarily the 4th corner. Taking a look at the TMR machine, and there's Macramini in the number 77, the Argentine, running 3rd so far with a 142.47, his personal best, and he's going to leapfrog Zach Mitchell and make a jump to the, well, no, he's just going to get out of the way instead of jump to the pits. And he's on the Reds, Liv. So for those that don't know, the red tires, a softer compound of rubber gives you more grip, but of course the degradation is higher, meaning if you start the race on reds, you're going to have faster laps in the beginning, but less tire life. Vice versa for the black tire, harder compound, which is not as quick, but more tire life. If it's you, are you starting on reds or blacks?
I think with how short the tank is here, I think we were expecting to have to run a full stint on a tyre on a full fuel load, no matter what you start on. So if it's me, I am trying to take a qualifying run on the alternate tyres here. The problem you're going to run into is that you can't do those long multi-lap runs on the alternate, especially with the length of this track. It's close to about 4 miles, I believe. And the tyres aren't really going to survive very well for multiple runs. You saw how slow that cooldown lap was for the 77, as I believe he didn't make a trip back to pit lane, but I could be wrong. He's now going to start another flying run, and you get fewer laps, but those laps are going to be better. I think that's the trade-off you get with the alternate qualifying strategy. I think that's why some drivers like to start on the primes, and then for those final couple of runs, go and send a flyer out on the reds. But we'll see what the 77 can do. Already has his eye in, is just a third of a second behind our current pole time from Tucker Sawyer. Can he find any more out of those alternate compound tyres?
77 right now going through the first few corners and trying to make his way possibly further ahead. He's only a 1/10 of a second off Nick Pressey. So just trying to see what he can do in his first attempt, and he is a rookie as well, so he's just crashed heavily into the outside barrier here, and Matthias Macromini, now he has to jump to the pits if he hasn't jumped before, and that looks like it's Carmen Sienna in the 96 that's going to fly around him, and she's on a flyer as well. Fastest lap, 1:43.47. Her previous attempt is her quickest yet.
And as the, obviously the showrunner here at ABN, has the most starts of anyone, 76 starts, has the top 10 record as well. 4 poles, 4 wins, and of course that Season 1 championship that she's been hunting to try and replicate ever since. I think she's feeling pretty okay about this season. I'm not sure she's expecting to be able to take the top spot, but she's going to make a strong start here. And she's going to come through the final corner. And the lap time, it's going to be improved to 43.4. Though that was the fastest lap time. This is an out lap, and so now she's getting going for a flying lap. One thing to mention about that instant for the 77, and this is something drivers have to be aware of, to make sure they are on top of the rules. A tow in qualifying does end your qualifying session. You're not permitted to make another attempt in that situation. If you can get it back to pit lane and get the crews to repair it, then that's fair game. But for Matthias, that is going to be the end of the session. It looks like he does know those rules and is staying put with 10 minutes to go in this session. But always got to make sure every series has slightly different regulations on how they run things, and it's very easy to get caught out for that for one of our rookies in the series.
Just over 9 minutes and change remaining in this qualifying session. Tucker Sawyer still at the top of the tree, 1:42.52. The Brooklyn pilot, Nick Pressey, in the 94 sits in second. And then Matthias Macromini, as we were just talking about, he's crashed. He's out of qualifying, so now he needs to sit for the next 9 and some minutes and hope that no one takes his third spot away. Carmen Sienna in that 96.
And I don't know if you saw there coming through Le Mans, just catching that inside lip of the curb that I was mentioning on that hot lap from Christina, bouncing and podoing all over the place. And it's going to mean that she's going to abandon that lap, go down to pit lane, and this might be the time when she decides to pull the trigger and maybe give the alternate tyres a shot.
Still plenty of time. Plenty of time to go, and Eli Sasek in that number 9. 32 starts, 19 top 10s, 2 wins, but Liv, no poles for the pilot of the 9 car. What a way it would be to start his ABN campaign from my hometown, Grand Rapids, Michigan. Let's see what the Western Michigan driver can do.
Yeah, and that was just finishing up a lap. Set a 142.6 and is up to 6th place on the tower. And then our current pole time, a 142.1. I'm expecting we're going to get into the 41s by the end of the session and maybe potentially into the 40s if someone goes for those alternates. But a lot of the front runners seem happy sitting on the primary compound tyres right now, trying to take that strategy option. And of course, they have to run both tyres in the race, but hoping to use those alternates maybe a bit later on as Sasset passes his teammate who's stranded there at the side of the track. I didn't quite catch who that was. It is Evan Eisenman, the rookie, getting going again in that number 66 car. Doesn't have a lap time on the board just yet. And with 7.5 minutes, he's going to want to try and get that sorted quickly.
At least put something on the board, get a feel for it. There's one car who's missing half of the wing coming up to the right-hander and almost flying off of the racetrack.
This is Bryce Socia in the 07 for Nicholas Pressy Motorsports. 9th on the board right now with an okay time, but is going to want to try and bring this one back to the pits safely and without impeding any of the cars behind to try and get that front wing reattached and to try and get one more attempt at this session. Gotta be careful though, because right behind us, Nicholas Pressy actually has just gone top of the timing board. Does dip into the 141s. The question is, what does Tucker Sawyer have in response? Tucker Sawyer just behind is actually George Ward is now limping back around as well. Maybe a little bit, maybe just getting out of the way of those cars on fast laps. But Nicholas Pressy, first driver into the 41s. Tucker Sawyer, I believe, coming to start a lap potentially here. And they're coming to finish, come back to the pit lane for one last attempt. 6 minutes to go. Is going to take a reset. Maybe not the best strategy because that is going to put the fuel back in. And unless he had some damage that he was carrying still, he's going to roll back out on still the primary compound tyre and see what he's able to do for the rest of the session. We'll follow back to Christina Ryan, of course, our Season 2 world champion. Had a slow lap last time by, would assume that was a cool-down lap, so this should be, by any luck, a push lap that we can follow on board with. And you've got to be so precise with these braking zones here at Sebring. They're quite heavy braking zones. But if you overshoot, you can very much miss hooking that curb on the inside, and that can really slow you down. And if you end up bouncing off one of the curbs later in the lap, that is going to cause you a world of trouble getting the power back down on the exit.
On board with the Yeti of Ryan, she's going to take another attempt here. Sawyer went out onto the track just as Nick Pressy went purple. 1:41.99 for the Brooklyn pilot, and Ryan in the 80 now must best that time. Coming out in a livery that's reminiscent of the Renault Lotus, or no, Lotus Renault Formula One livery on her Indy car. 4.5 minutes to go in the qualifying session, coming through that bumpy, horrendous, and it's about to be a very tight final corner out of Sebring, and Ryan survives, albeit a bit wide through that last corner and down into the pits actually, so she is going to abandon this lap as well. She remains 5th, just over 4 minutes to go in qualifying.
And I believe this should be a start of a lap for Tucker Sawyer. Fresh set of primary compound tyres, and to try and find any last pace he can out of this. You see the bumps from the offboard shots there.
The 19 goes to work, and with traffic ahead, we'll see just if Sawyer can expertly navigates his way through. I was going to say, let's see how he works through that, and he works through it beautifully. So now headed through the first several corners, and he's going to take that hard, tight right-hander into one of the more narrow parts of the racetrack. I was talking to somebody else earlier today about what other cars you could run on Sebring, and someone had thrown out the idea, why not Gen 4 cars? As much as I love putting Gen 4 cars on ridiculous courses, Sebring is not the place. It is just so narrow. It would be almost a disaster watching them all go through, but definitely a show to watch for sure. Tucker Sawyer about halfway done and headed onto this very, very long straight, the Ullman straight, coming out of Le Mans, and Liv, from here to the end, it's foot down and don't lift.
Yeah, and there's one quick comparison I want to make. I want to see what Tucker Sawyer ends up going for here, because that line on the entry of Sunset for Fortuna Ryan was very narrow. You'll see here, I think, a lot wider away from that inside wall on entry, tipping at about the 2-cone, and then braking at the 1, down to second gear, back up towards the line. Is he going to find an improvement here? Is going to find a 41.843, and that's going to be pole position, taken back for the number 19 Ascent Racing driver. Tucker Sawyer goes to the top and is now going to have one cooldown lap, because that's not valid, to try and get those tyres into a window to go for one last shot to try and defend from whatever Nicholas Pressey might have going against. Is this a
car 94?
I don't think this is a flying lap from the 94. We'll try and find a lap from... Let's follow with Bryce Socia as he comes to start a lap here. Nicholas Pressey's teammate in the 07, long-time teammate, this duo, have been going for years and years. Bryce Socia has a win of his own, sorry, 3 wins of his own and a pole position. And the collaboration between them two is really where they shine. Strategy talk, tips on tools and adjustments. So it's a great pairing those two have made for a few years, and they're going to continue that into season number 7.
Socia in the 07, now trying to make his way into the top 5 at least. He sits 9th right now. 1 pole in 49 starts here, and we'll see just how far the number 9 makes it up the tree. This is effectively going to be the last chance, well, the second to last chance if he decides to take this lap and the next, provided he makes it across the line in the next 56 seconds. So the teammate for the Nick Pressey Motorsports machine now sitting in 10th. George Ward now sitting in 9th as well. And Socia with a little bit of work to do if he wants to start in this top 10. Through Le Mans, Liv now on the left-hander that leads to the Ullman straight. 30 seconds to go in qualifying.
Yeah, we'll see what Bryce Socia can do, then hop on board with Pressey for his final response. He's just taken the start-finish line now. Lily Pelletier-Sharp has hopped to 3rd on the alternate compound tyre, so we'll start from the 2nd row. We'll see if Bryce Socia has an improvement here. Is going to come across the stripe, is not going to find any lap time. That is going to be sticking where he is. You have one more shot here, but we'll follow Nicholas Pressey, one of only 2 drivers into the 41s, but it's not quite enough. Sawyer with a 41.843 currently, who's a few seconds up the road. It'll be Sawyer with the first lap time in at the checkered flag here, followed by Nicholas Pressey. The checkered flag is out in the qualifying session. As soon as drivers take that stripe, it's going to be the end of their run. See what Sawyer and Pressey have in store. Can they find any more lap time out of this track? As the temps have stayed pretty stable. They've fallen a couple of degrees, so maybe just that little bit more grip. Lily Pelletier-Sharp goes faster again. Slots in between those 2 drivers again on those alternate compound tyres. But what does Nicholas Pressey have in store? What does Tucker Sawyer have in store? We'll see what the 19 can do. Coming through Sunset one final time to the checkered flag. A little bit loose there through the final corner. Is there an improvement for the 19? Another 10th and change taken. Tucker Sawyer improves the gap at the top of the board. What does Nicholas Pressey have in store? Can he respond? Coming across the line for the final time this session, and it's not going to be an improvement. It's going to be Tucker Sawyer on the pole position here.
Car 19 gets the job done, 141.72. He's going to go walk away with this first position. Lily Sharp, 141.92, 2/10 off the pole, and Nick Pressey rounds out the top three.
And we've got a little bit of time before the race session gets underway. We might have a chance to have a quick word with our pole sitter, as I believe that is everyone's lap finished up now. We're going to head into our warm-up.
So qualifying is over. We're going to get Tucker Sawyer in the booth to have a quick word, talk about his chances for this race. We're going to talk about a couple of things and get the race going. Don't go anywhere. This is the perfect time to grab a snack. Give us just a moment, and we're going to bring in Tucker Sawyer for a word on his pole lap. Warm-up session just underway. Tucker Sawyer in the house after putting down a blistering lap time. Tucker, Rick James in the house with Liv Hayward as well. Talk us through what it takes to put together a pole lap at Sebring, because for the longest time you were locked into first. Nick Pressey caught on to your scent, and then you put that final nail in the pole position coffin. What is it about Sebring that you love so much?
I don't really know, to be honest. I like how hard it is. Like, you really, if you're gonna be pole, you really have to put in the dedication to the lap. You gotta be pretty much perfect everywhere. So it was super tough. I thought I was gonna crash like 4 times, but yeah, it's tough, but very fun.
Going into this race, it is 29 laps on offer. Now, with you being at the top, of course, everybody's already got your rear wing in their view. Who in your mind is going to be the toughest challenge on the way to victory lane?
Probably Nick Pressey or Lily, because they're both really good road racers, so they'll probably give me a good challenge into the first turn. So I just got to put my head down and focus in front.
Fair enough. I mean, that's what it takes there. So you've got about another 8.5 minutes of warm-up left to go. We're going to go ahead and let you get on the racetrack and focus. Best of luck, Tucker. Hopefully we talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Liv, 8 minutes on the track here, and from your perspective, do you use the 10-minute warm-up to shake the car down? Do you actually really want to go in there and mess with anything else, or are you just trying to focus for the race?
I think in the context of that sort of qualifying session where you've already run laps on your preferred tyre, I don't know how much extra you can get, but running a longer run on that tyre set rather than just going for that push lap, it's going to be a little bit of a factor. It could be quite useful if you maybe have gone for a flyer on the alternates at the end and not gotten the use out of it. You can then use that time to get back and set up the primaries and run that. It's a very nice strategy to use maybe for your second lap in an official qualifying session. What you can also do here, I think, as we're seeing from Tucker Sawyer, is get some practice on the standing starts. It's a very gentle launch from the number 1, who has the pole position on lock. Just wants to make sure he holds on to it as best as possible on the way out of this session. It'll be a tricky thing to do on the bumps of the Sebring tarmac. But that's the other thing you really want to use session for, to practice that initial launch and make sure you get to turn 1 in one piece. If you'd have actually, we see Christina Ryan here, set the qualifying lap on the primary tyre, but is instead using this to get a feel for the alternates for when she hops onto them later in the race, because, of course, all drivers required to make, I think, a 5-lap stint on each compound at least. So you're going to have to work out how to make these tyres last for a little bit. You've got a chance for maybe a 3-4 lap run to practice keeping smooth as possible, using that extra grip that, of course, the alternates do provide. And we're seeing Christina Ryan going for that test on the alternate option. And so with just under 6 minutes left before we head to the grid, things are looking pretty good for the field heading into this one. We'll see if it gets a standing start practicing as well at some point.
Shout out to Moldy Muskrat, shout out to Taylor Mills, shout out to Claveson in the chat. Fans getting in the chat and gearing themselves up as well. We're fans of racing as well, and we love this just like you do also. Just under 5.5 to go in this warm-up session. Christina Ryan in the 80 Lotus Renault liveried machine. She'll be starting in, what, the third? No, not starting. She's third on this chart right now, but Liv, tell me where she finished qualifying, I should say, where she's going to be starting this race.
I can't quite remember. Tell you what, should we go through our qualifying order right now? And because we don't have much time once they get onto the grid, so
that's probably a good idea. I think that's probably an excellent idea. Let's get familiarized with who's actually going to be starting where here. 4.5 minutes until lights out. Taking a look at that first row, Tucker Sawyer, of course, with the pole, and then Alyssa Sharp starting on the outside of row number 1. Briley Wright makes his way through the racetrack as row number 2 flashes up, and it's the pride of Brooklyn, New York, Nick Pressey, and the Argentine who had a crash in that qualifying session, Matthias Macramini, on the outside of row 2. Zach Mitchell in the TRM machine next to Christina Ryan, who we were just watching sling that Renault IndyCar around this racetrack. They make up row number 3. Eli Sasek and Carmen Sienna, the season 1 champion, in that 4th row of competition. Row number 5 brings up Big Pink, George Ward, and Bryce Saucier, the other Nick Pressey car, starting in 10th on the outside of that 5th row. In the 6th, my man, Colin McDonough, starting next to Mo Perry in one of those TRM cars. Row 7 comes before us, and we've got Sean Kirby and Mitchell Semedo side by side. The top 14 are done, and now comes row number 8. The pride of Greensburg, Kentucky, and one of the Bluegrass Bandits, Briley Wright, alongside Evan Eisenman. That's an all-rookie row in that 8th row. 16 cars flashing on our screen here, and I'm excited. Liv, I'm just excited. 3 minutes to go in the shakedown, and what's going through your mind as the driver?
I am just nervous about this start. Again, standing starts, it's not common in these champ car machines in official racing, but it's the way we run on road courses here. It's a bit of excitement. It's not the most difficult thing to launch in the world, but only if you have the practice and know how to get them going. I think the main thing I'm watching out for on this initial start is going to be how the outside line gets away for this start. Because the front 2 rows, we've got Lily Pelletier Sharp and Matthias Marcamini, both on the alternate compound tyre, so they might get a better launch and maybe can try and carry that speed into turn number 1. And then behind them, the 2 returning series champions, Christina Ryan and Carmen Sienna, outside of rows 3 and 4. So that's going to be a fun one heading to turn number 1. And I do hope we get through it in one piece, because it's quite easy to get caught up in a big incident if someone traps out wide or maybe gets a bit loose on the bumps in the middle of the turn. I've had a couple of incidents this week in officials of incidents just like that, but it's going to be a fun launch down into that first corner. 90
seconds until the shakedown is complete. A new season of ABN Champ Car sits on the horizon. Liv, I think we're in, what, season 4? Is this our 4th season of competition already?
It's our 7th season.
Our 7th season? I can't count. You know what? I'm new to this. Cut me some slack. We're 7 seasons in. I'm well behind it. I've got a lot of catching up to do, and I'm excited to do it with you over the next 25 laps and the rest of the season as well. Liv, you mentioned earlier how we're going to alternate races. Looking at our Champ Car schedule, we've got Homestead, that Miami 300, if you will, running on the 5th of March. Then to Barber on the 19th of March, the Grand Prix of Alabama. The Fort Worth 300 is going to be our 4th round, and then I'm looking forward to April 9, where we're going to be running Long Beach. Also, don't forget about the GT World Tour on the 1st of March. The Winstel Cup Series, the day after that, on the 2nd of March. We talked about ABN Champ Car from Homestead, Miami on the 5th. And then Platinum Endurance from the Nürburgring, 7 in the morning on the East Coast of the United States. 18 seconds to go. We're going to catch our breaths and hold on. Get settled. We're going green in 10. "29 glorious laps under the iRacing sunshine of Sebring. Round number 1 of the Aero Broadcast Network Champ Car Series is about to go green. Our 7th season of racing, as I've just found out, waiting for those lights, waiting to go green. Everybody on edge, everybody nervous, and now just gripping the wheel, that anticipation, that anxiety, and the calm that will come after this first corner. Waiting for the lights, waiting for the season to go green. If you've just tuned in, welcome. If this is your first season, welcome. If this is your 7th, let's go again one more time. ABN Champ Cars about to go green from Sebring, waiting for the lights. We are racing from Sebring, trying not to spin the tires. Everybody just trying to hold on, and it's a mad dash into turn number 1. Pelletier Sharp taking the extreme wide line and flies through turn number 1. Nick Pressey, Tucker Sawyer, everybody scrambling out of that first corner. It looks like Macromini spun the tires at the beginning, but continues forward. Ryan to his inside. It goes Pelletier Sharp, Pressey, Sawyer, Mitchell, Ryan, your top 5. Looking at the pink George Ward in the 6th position and the Argentine behind him, Macromini in that double 7. Big shake from Christina Ryan going into the very slow right-hander. One car's locked it up, Liv, and it looks like Zach Mitchell in the 69. He's gone around.
And that's caught up Christina Ryan as well, not the way she wanted her season to start. She's lost a bit of the front wing. It's probably going to have to make an early stop here. Jet going again, just a little bit deep on the brakes and a rear lockup for that 69 car. She's going to fall through the field, but further up we see the gap between Tucker Sawyer and Nicholas Pressey. Very tight, but Lily Pelletier Sharp, who again qualified on the alternate, started on the outside line, got a great launch on those softer tyres, and is now trying to run away, try and build that gap. It's up to
Big
2
flash
seconds
at the back
already.
here, Liv. Sorry to interrupt. Looks like Zach Mitchell's gone around again. Briley Wright almost involved. And 2 or 3 cars caught up at the back here. And Christina Ryan in huge trouble in the 80, missing massive pieces of that race car. And there we see Zach Mitchell in the 6.9 go around again. There looks like Christina Ryan's involvement. And that purple and white car, who's that also got caught up in that accident?
That was Briley Wright. So as Christina was limping it back through contact with that number 3, we'll see if we can get another view of this and slow it down a little bit. Netcode definitely helped out, but I think maybe just expecting Christina to back out of that corner with the damage catches out a few more cars, and we have a lot of carnage here, opening up our Sebring round, opening up our season.
We stay green 2 laps into this race. The double 7 car, Matthias Ezekiel Macromini on the outside of George Ward, and Big Pink will survive the right-hander in 4th, and almost a little bit of contact between the American and the Argentine. Talking about Sienna, and 1 car flying through the air, Liv. I think it was another one of the purple cars that I saw back here, but this is coming out of that right-hander. And carnage all over the place. Some drivers really not acclimating to Sebring.
Yeah, I wonder if that was Mo Perry this time. Getting caught out.
It is absolutely Mo Perry. Yep, one of the TMR cars, Liv.
And then tries to slot back in, but is still side by side with Eli Satic. Naturally goes over the barrier and back to pit lane. So TMR having a horrid time so far in their championship campaign. Of course, won the title last season with the battery of Lilat Zir and Alexander Miller, but both drivers not making a return. We cut back to live action. It's side by side between Touch Sawyer and Nicholas Pressy, and number 19 gets around, but 3 seconds now to the alternate tire runner of Philippe Pellicer Sharp.
3 seconds the gap from first all the way to second, and then 3/10 from second to third. These two look like they're already fighting it out for the silver medal, unless somebody can get up to Alyssa Pelletier Sharp and stop what she's doing at the front of this race. 1:42.18 so far, the time to beat. Looking at Sawyer, he's now starting to break away from Pressy just a little bit, but then Sienna starts to creep in that distance. Big Pink has a mirror full of Macromini. This is the fight for that 5th position. Sawyer continues to stay ahead of Pressy for second.
And this fight for 4th place is a 3-way fight here, and Macromini actually looking a little bit spooked on those alternate tires, as maybe burnt them up in these first couple laps, and is going the opposite direction to what he would have been hoping. And gets a little bit too deep there into Tower Corner, gets a little tap to the rear of George Ward, but it looks like is going to make it through without any damage. That front wing does look intact, but a sketchy start to the season for the number 77, but ultimately he's still rolling. He's still within 10 seconds of our race leader and is holding on to a solid 6th place right now.
Plenty of race to go. 3 laps, not even complete on our board just yet. Although Lily Sharp looks like she's about to put this one to bed very, very early. Looking at Macromini still in that 5th position after 6th position, after crashing in qualifying. It's a good start that he's still pointed in that right direction, and George Ward just up ahead. I've been calling him Big Pink this entire time because my software showed a Big Pink IndyCar in the middle of the racetrack. Refreshing a little bit and looking on my side of things, I can now see that is a purple and white IndyCar, but we're still going to go with Big Pink because it just rolls off the tongue nicely. So Big Pink George Ward running in 5th still. Looking back to the battle for the 10th position, this is Briley Wright and Eli Sasic, the Kentucky pilot, just trying to stay ahead of Eli early on in this race. And, well, not for long. The Kentucky pilot now goes wide, and Eli, who's missing part of the left side pod, now zooms into that 10th position.
Missing more than a chunk of that left side pod is... I think both of them actually carrying that, and I think just trying to make it to the pit cycle to take their fast repair without having to take an extra trip down pit lane. But they're both 30 seconds off the race lead. I'm wondering just how much this is actually worth, considering that they're setting lap times in the 145s. You can see they're both looking sketchy through that section as well. Our leaders running in the 142s right now. As one thing we haven't really brought much attention to so far in this race, of course, we have the tyre strategy But we've also got to look at the push to pass available for each of these drivers. You see some of these drivers further back still saved up. Lily Pelletier Sharp has used a fair amount of that button to try and pull away that gap, and has a 3-second gap now as Nicholas Pressy has actually fallen away from Tucker Sawyer. Will Photos back on board with this battle for 4th place, or 5th place I should say, as Matthias Martinini continues to try and hold on to, I think at this point, George Ward, who is on those harder compound tyres that are really starting to bed in a little bit better at this phase of the race.
And right now, drivers are just settled into the ride, Liv. There's a 6/10 gap between Ward and Macromini for that 5th position, and then further on back, there's only an 0.8 of a second gap between what was Colin McDonough, but now looking back at Macromini, the gap has closed considerably. Ward with a big shake, and looking out the back end of that number 36 car, Macromini might just smell blood in the water, and the Argentine is on the hunt for a top 5 position. Liv, where's his best passing opportunity?
I think the good move here is to try and get Ward out of rhythm here. He's looking for a peak maybe into Lamar. No, he's going to slot back in. But you want to try and focus on the exit through here. Try and get on the button, and a little bit wide there, not quite hooking up, and George Ward is going to have the better run out of Lamar and down the Ullman Straight. But luckily he's going to have that, there's a bit of blink in there actually. He's going to have that slipstream to draw him back towards George Ward. Is not going to have to use that push to pass. You'll be able to see it with the wheel lighting up in green. He's saving it. He's not using it right now. He's going to try and stay in the slipstream and make use of it later on in this race.
Tucker Sawyer went purple, 1:42.01. He is the fastest driver on track thus far. 2.8 seconds, the gap between himself and Sharp, and he has been closing up that gap over the last 5 laps, especially last lap. Tucker Sawyer was 7/10 quicker than Lily Pelletier Sharp, and now 2.5 seconds is the gap between them. So Sawyer, one of 2 things is going on, Liv. Either Sharp is going slower or Sawyer is going faster. That's the obvious part. But coming up into what could be Lily Sharp's pit cycle, when do you expect the drivers on red tires to come into these pits?
We're expecting it, really, it's a very narrow cycle here to how long the lap is. We're expecting lap 7 or 8 for a lot of these drivers. It's a fuel limited strategy here where you want to try and get 3 stints of 7 and 1 stint of 8 to get to the end on 3 stops. I'd imagine for the alternates, you're going to try and get it as a 7 stint rather than take the tyres that final lap. But you can see the fall off there. It is Pelletier Sharp going slower. Set of 42.0 earlier in the stint is now just holding on to a 42.7. And actually, Sharp is going to undercut here. He's going to pit end of lap 6. It's going to require a little bit more fuel save to get to the end unless she goes for a 4-stop strategy. But let's see what Sharp does. I'd imagine she's going to get a fresh set of tyres on. Will it be the primes or the alternates for our former race leader, number 71? Those tyres come off the jacks, and it's going to be a fresh set of primary compound tyres. 7.6 launches out of the pit box and is going to get rolling once again. Going to slot out just ahead, it looks like, of Mitchell Tomato and Zach Mitchell. And you see just up the road, she comes out in 7th place with a pocket of clean air that she's going to try and use as much as possible. And potentially, again, let's keep an eye on that push to pass number, down to 153 already. And maxing a little bit more use of that coming through this next couple of laps to try and cover off a potential overcut from those cars around. But she's got to get the tyres up to temperature first. See, nice and slow and smooth through that corner. And so actually trying to save the push pass for a little bit later on.
Tucker Sawyer still with 188 seconds of that push to pass and a 4-second advantage over Brooklyn's Nick Pressey. George Ward now only half a second ahead of Matthias Macramini, that 36 machine trying to hold off the Argentine again before these pit stops. Now Ward is on black tires, Macramini is on the reds, so Macramini is using up that precious life in those red Firestones before coming into the pits, and the leader is in as well, Liv. Tucker Sawyer with a couple of puffs of smoke flies into the pits. New leader in car 94, Brooklyn's Nick Pressey.
And this is that 8 stint. We said drivers need one of them to make it on a 3-stop strategy. Pressey's done a little bit of saving. That's why he was off the pace from Tucker Sawyer early in that run. We see the pit stop here from Tucker Sawyer. He's going to take a fresh set, it looks like, of primary compound tyres. He's going to stay on those going through the rest of this, but he's going to fall. You see Lily Pelletier-Sharp fly through. She defends that lead, even with the outlap on the cold primaries. But Nicholas Pressey's done the fuel save already. Quite a few drivers, actually, have done that fuel save already. You see here, anyone with an 8 next to their name, they've made it work. Mitchell, Semedo, actually Mitchell might be on his way, and no, all of those drivers are committed now to the 3-stop strategy. We've yet to see whether Sharp and Sawyer are going to be able to pull off that 3-stop, or whether they'll have a 4th trip down what is quite a long pit lane here at Sebring.
The track laid over what used to be a World War II airbase and now used to send race cars around it at ludicrous speeds. 0.4 of a second, the gap now between Macramini and Saucier, and they continue to ebb and to flow, and the tires are continuing to be used up on this 8th lap of competition. So now time just ticks down for the Argentine, wondering when he'll come down to visit pit road. Tucker Sawyer, Lily Sharp, now 9/10 the gap between them. Remember, Lily Sharp pitting on lap 6, Tucker Sawyer pitting on lap 7, while the leaders are in. Pressey, Sienna, Ward, Macramini, the top 4 all in. Bryce Saucier in that 07 car. Will he come into the pits with a big slide out of the final corner? He will come into the pits and back on top of the tree. Car 71, Lily Pelletier-Sharp, Tucker Sawyer in that 2nd position. Nick Pressey exiting the pits now. Will he do it in that 3rd position? He will, and the red 96 of Carmen Sienna, she will exit behind Pressey. George Ward will exit the pits in the 5th position at the front, Liv. 0.8 between Lily Pelletier-Sharp and Tucker Sawyer for 1st place.
Yeah, and one thing I was keeping an eye on there, as we are going to follow this battle, these two drivers have really closed in. I think Pelletier-Sharp might be now having to make that fuel save work in the 71. Just Sawyer has matching tyres, but of course a little bit more in the tank. I was watching to see if anyone decided to take fuel only. It looks like no one yet has made that call. And a primary compound tyre can make it about 15 laps on a set of tyres, is what you do with a full tank available in these champ cars. And so you can save maybe 2-3 seconds on pit road, keeping on that set of black sidewalled Firestones for a 2nd stint. No one pulling the trigger on that here. Maybe this isn't the track for it, but later in the season, that might be something that some of these drivers go for. Tucker Sawyer now within 0.6 of a second of Pelletier-Sharp. He's going to save that button. The screen still dark black, not lit up in green. Going to use the slipstream here. Close into Sharp. Maybe, since he still has 1 fuel save stint to go as well, he's going to use this as the opportunity. You want to try and avoid using push to pass if that is the way you're playing things. Pressey 9 seconds behind now, but I think these two do just genuinely have some fantastic pace. As fastest lap, it looks like once again for Tucker Sawyer, dips into the 41s this time. And he's already got a little bit of bonus money for taking the pole position. He's looking a little bit more to try and get the race fastest lap as well.
2:0 to go, and it will be 1:9 at the line next time by. 1:41.94, and now sizing up Pelletier-Sharp for the lead. Car 71 now playing tough defense Sawyer has the fastest lap. He's got the pole. He wants that top spot, but he doesn't need to force the issue. It will be 19 laps to go this time by, and with everybody coming between laps 6 and 8, for the most part, we know that it's going to be at least 2 more stops to the end. If I'm Tucker Sawyer and I can catch up to Lily Pelletier-Sharp, Liv, I'm not going to push the issue.
No, I agree. This is a nice chance to settle in. Remember that Tucker Sawyer does have to take a set of alternate compound tyres before the end of this race. If I'm him, maybe I do that in that final stop, bolt a fresh set of reds on, and just go hell for leather, use up all of my push to pass. Lily Pelletier-Sharp, actually, if we bring this up right now on our board, Pelletier-Sharp has been using that button to try and keep that gap away. Has used 81 seconds of that button already. Carmen Sinner with 80 used as well, but Tucker Sawyer used just 12 of the 200 allotted and is staying on the back of the French driver nice and easily. This is the sort of thing where if you can force the driver ahead to use their extra power now, you can do it at the end of the race when they have nothing to defend with and just waltz off into sunset.
"119 seconds remaining for the French pilot leading this race. Nick Pressey with 169 in that third position. Carmen Sienna now 9/10 behind the Brooklyn pilot in the bronze medal battle, starting to heat up. And Sienna, again, she needs to start thinking about conserving some of that push to pass, while Pressey can force her to use her tires, but he's also got to think about it as well. And on this 10th lap of competition, I think the double six of Evan Eisenman had an incident. Liv, looks like he just came a little too hot into the corner here and gave it a spin. Car 69 went for a bit of a skid. And we're seeing here, this is going through turn number 5, I think.
Nope,
7, the hairpin. This is turn 7, the hairpin, pardon me. Headed into Fangio.
So easy to do that.
Oh, absolutely. No harm, no foul. Evan keeps it pushing, and we're still racing here. At the front, though, half a second the gap. For third, half a second the gap. And for fifth, 6/10 the gap. Battles all through the top 3 rows.
It's got to be sooner rather than later, I think, if Carmen wants to get this move done in this stint. She's basically got 2 options to go with in the terms of the strategy here. She can either sit behind, try and build up that push to pass margin once again, or, as we've had, I think, George Ward into pit lane early. We'll see if there's been any incident, and there's a missing part of the front wing, actually, for George Ward. We'll see if we can find what it was that caused that. We roll it back and maybe an incident through sunset. We'll try and go on board and see what's happened to our number 36, but that's going to be an additional pit stop.
I'm willing to bet he just went a little too hot into the pits. Yep, there he is coming out of that final corner, and there is the front of his wing. He looks like he almost took that. Looked like Macrobini that he almost took with him. And Ward, he did pit on lap number 2, so it makes sense that he would come in on lap number 11, but now, of course, he has used a little more time coming into the pits to repair that race car. So where this is going to put George Ward is going to be pitting with approximately 5 laps to go. So Ward's last 5 laps are going to be extremely quick, but they have to be, considering that he's going to be behind the 8 ball. Watch for Big Pink to make his move in the final 5 laps. Looking at Sienna in car 96, she just went green, 142.41. She's working on Nick Pressey for third. Let's see if we can get, there goes Pressey on the outside. He's going to give up the spot, and Sienna is going to speed away with the third position. 13 laps underway at Sebring, and looking at the 12th position, excuse me, Christina Ryan and Colin McDonough now going at it.
Yeah, not where the 80 of Christina Ryan would want to be, of course. coming in as Season 2 champion, you see the emblem just in front of the rear wheels on that number 80 Honda. But unfortunately got caught up in early incidents, is now down in 12th place and trying to fight for any position, really. I think potentially off-site Olivia, with 2 trips down pit road already, is going to have to try and slot through the field as further back. That's Colin McDonough just getting a bit loose out of Lamar. Is going to get rolling again, but is missing an entire front wing. And so that'll be an unscheduled pit stop required for the 39, who is not making the start he'd have wanted as an additional Nicholas Pressey eMotorsports driver for this season.
The StickerRobot.com machine has a lot of work to do, running in 13th and now definitely behind it back at the front. The 71 of Pelletier Sharp with a mirror full of Tucker Sawyer. Now, they last pitted on laps 6 and 7. We're about to complete lap number 12. So they're only a couple of laps away from their next pit stops. Liv Tucker Sawyer has the advantage here because he just needs to keep the pressure. Depending on what kind of push to pass he has left, he might be able to force a mistake out of car 71. But again, we're not even halfway yet. Plenty of racing to unfold still. And as a matter of fact, the battle for 11th gets closer. Christina Ryan has the Kentucky pilot Briley Wright breathing down her neck.
One thing to keep an eye on, I think Pelletier Sharp will be in this lap, but has made that 8-lap stint work here. Has done that fuel save that she needs for at least one stint. She'll have to do it again after that undercut. But Christina Ryan has actually done a great job clearing Briley Wright, who has not had the start of the season he would have wanted. Christina running away, and you see these lap times, 43.5 fastest. It's competitive with that sort of upper midfield section. It's just not been the sort of opening laps to be able to carry that into a solid position on the timing tower. 1:11 behind our race leaders, and both requiring 2 more stops to get to the end of this race. I think realistically can maybe try and chase down up to Eli Sasek at a pinch, but is still 20 seconds behind the Ascent Racing driver with just 15 laps left in this contest. We'll focus back to the front with Lily Pelletier Sharp, who we expect is going to have to come down pit road this time by. Can Tucker Sawyer, has he done the fuel save? He's going to fly right around the outside. He's going to take the race lead. And Lily Pelletier Sharp down on pit road for the second time.
Second of 3 scheduled stops. We're going to have 14 laps to go next time by. New leader, car 19. Carmen Sienna in that 3rd position. Sits ahead of Nick Pressey by several car lengths, and they will both stay out. So, Pelletier Sharp coming in earlier than the rest of the competition. Now, 1 lap is going to make the difference here, Liv. It is a 3.74 mile track, and that's going to be, it's a long 6K. It's a very long 6K on a torturous racetrack. Pelletier Sharp is back out onto the racetrack. Tucker Sawyer leading this race, and the battle for 8th is close. Eli Sasek, George Ward trying to stay away from each other.
And I think that might have been fuel only for Pelletier Sharp. I didn't see the car go up on the jets. Might have just been my eyes deceiving me, but if it was just a fuel stop, it was not as quick as I think she would have been hoping. It didn't save any time compared to a fresh set, and you've got tires to spare and a little bit of dust kicked up. If you catch that off-track surface on the exit of the hairpin, you've got to straight line the exit to have any chance of carrying speed. It's a rough spot, and it makes that section quite difficult to make an overtake in. But we'll jump to our battle right now for second place, as we're expecting Tucker Sawyer to be in at the end of this lap. We'll see whether Sienna or Pressey decide to respond, or whether they extend in this stint to try and go for an 8th lap. Tucker Sawyer is in from the lead of the race. Carmen Sienna, Nicholas Pressey are both going to stay out, and that means for the meantime it will be the 96 inheriting the race lead for what would be the first time today if she can make it back to the line. before Nicholas Pressey. Tucker Sawyer in the box.
Kirby's off the track. Liv, I'm going to interrupt here. Sean Kirby's off the track in car 37, now just trying to regain control of his race car. He's back out onto the track, and he's up to racing speed, although that looks like Carmen Sienna that's coming up behind Kirby, and now the leader may have traffic before her scheduled pit stop. 96, 1 second ahead of Nick Pressey as Sean Kirby regains control, coming through Fangio, and Pressey's briefly off the track. There goes the battle for the lead. Carmen Sienna now 2.5 and counting, flying away from Nick Pressey, and there's the saving grace she needed to get away from Pressey. Sean Kirby just ahead of car 96. He's going to be okay. And now Eli Sasek, 0.7 of a second ahead of George Ward. These two still have not pitted, and a reminder, George Ward pitted on lap 11. So his tire life, 3 laps greater than that of Eli Sasek, and all eyes now on Carmen Sienna. She has a pit stop scheduled possibly this lap.
With respect to it, what we did also catch on our cameras there, Tucker Sawyer with a fantastically quick pit stop, and more importantly, a great in-lap compared to Lily Pelletier Sharp, and has come out about 3 seconds up the road, so spent that time behind doing a little bit of fuel saving, but then had the additional power to fly through on that final lap. I think maybe using a little bit of button to get it done. It's now down to 160 seconds remaining, but Lily Pelletier Sharp down to a very low amount, down to 65 left with 13 laps to go, and ultimately has given the lead back up to Tucker Sawyer on the exit of this pit cycle. Carmen Sienna is just rolling now as that's Matthias Marcomini gets into the pit box. Nicholas Pressey will filter out just behind on a set of alternate compound tires. So the battle flips once again between Sienna and Pressey. They alternate on their tire choice, but it's a 3-second lead for the 96 as she inherits 3rd position out of this one.
Tucker Sawyer being scored at the front there, 3.5 seconds ahead of Lily Pelletier Sharp, and Carmen Sienna 11 seconds adrift of the top 3. Nick Pressey now almost 3 seconds behind her. He also pitted on lap 16. So now Christina Ryan, who has not pitted since lap number 9, has been working her way through the field, down 3 places from where she started and only 0.6 of a second behind Zach Mitchell. She needs to think about what moves she's going to make because she has a pit stop coming up in these next couple of laps. Bryce Saucier, 18 seconds behind George Ward, but only 2.7 seconds ahead of Zach Mitchell. They both pitted on that same lap, so 7th place is going to get spicy. And then, of course, Ryan. Just what move is she going to make? And then, of course, even though it's a 4-second gap, Tucker Sawyer sits comfortably ahead of Lily Sharp, coming into the final 12 laps of competition. And as much as I'd like to say it's anybody's race, it's between 2 people, Liv. Sawyer in the 19, Pelletier Sharp in the 71.
Yeah, and Tucker Sawyer really has done a great job on the strategy there. Patient through that 2nd stint of the race. There's a couple of spots you can make those overtakes, but it's tricky. It's not automatic anywhere here. Into the hairpin, it bottlenecks on exit. You get that one-line shot between those kinks. Sunset, it's multiple line. You can very easily trip over each other if you try and go for the same piece of that bumpy tarmac. And if you're side by side there, you've got to battle through turn 1, and that's never going to end well. It's a lot easier, and Tucker Sawyer has agreed and managed to make it work to just get them moved on pit road. Out-strategize your opponent and just walk away. Now as 5.2 seconds is really pushing the issue, and importantly still has nearly 3 minutes of push to pass left for any defense might be necessary going to the end of the race. The only real question mark on the head of Tucker Sawyer is that I believe he has not yet taken the alternate tyres in this race. He will have to take them at the final pit stop, and we'll have to see if he can hold on to them for long enough to hold on to that race win. Speaking of the alternates, Nicholas Pressey on those alternate compound tires back onto the rear of Carmen Sienna coming through Le Mans, and you can just see the grip difference in those direction changes. Nicholas Pressy going to fly down the straightaway, and there's the push pass. First time we see it on board on the wheel. You see those green flashing lights to the left and right, and that border around the screen. Pressy tries to tuck to the inside, maybe spook Carmen a little bit. Doesn't get it done. Is going to be patient now through turn 1. We mentioned it's difficult to get the move done. Just going to try and get as close as possible. Forces Carmen into a defense, actually. Surprising from the 96, and is Pressy going to have the switchback? Maybe, but Carmen's going to try and defend it. He's going to go deep into turn number 2, but is just about to cover off the move from Nicholas Pressy, sorry. A great defensive drive on the primary tyre, but how much longer can she hold on to it?
10 laps to go. Next time by. Carmen Sienna opening the door for the Brooklyn pilot, and Pressy still just can't quite make the move. At the front, 6 seconds, still the gap. So this right here, the closest battle for a medal. How about Pressy trying the outside, trying to make it happen the hard way? Carmen Sienna defends brilliantly. There's contact between the two, and more contact between the two. Pressy will yield, and Sienna will come away with the position. Now, changing direction out of Tower and headed into the Bishop Bend. Pressy all over the back end of that 96. One last blast into the Sunset Bend, Liv.
Yeah, and again, it's focused on the exit as much as possible here. I've got to say, unfortunate for Pressy to not get that done there. There was a couple bits of what looked like maybe netcode contact as Sienna tried to defend the outside of that sweeper and managed to carry that inside line into Tower Corner. Pressy's now going to go for the outside line, got to avoid hitting those cones. Going to maybe try a switchback here out of the final corner. And oh my goodness, is this going to be an attempted move on the inside of turn number 1? Or is Pressy going to try and be patient one more time? Try and wait for the opportunity? Looking just over the shoulder of Pressy. Started in fourth position. Starting third position. Fell down to fourth and now trying to get back up into third. Carmen Sienna going to clunk over those curbs. Pressy goes for a look but can't get it done. That's going to bottle up the exit. Maybe a little bit desperate from the 94, trying to rush a move in some awkward parts of the racetrack. And it's going to mean he's going to have to fall away for a little bit longer and maybe try and set one up on the exit of the hairpin. But even so, his tyres are going to start to be fading away now, I believe on the 3rd or 4th lap on these alternates. And don't last long on a surface this hot and this bumpy.
3/10 now the difference between them, coming to 9 laps to go. This time by, and still one more pit stop on the horizon. Drivers would need to stretch this fuel run approximately an extra 3 to 4 laps, and I don't think that they can make it. So Pressy still yielding to Carmen Sienna. That's 4th up to 3rd. Another battle that remains close. Christina Ryan and Mitch Semedo, 9/10 the gap between them, and Ryan sitting in 10th, and now Semedo making a big mistake out of the corner, and that's no longer a battle. Ryan did go green last time around, 143.42, while the battle for 3rd much closer, and Pressy again going to attempt a move on the 96. Pressy on the red compounds with more grip. Sienna on the black compounds with more tire life. 8 to go next time by, and with pit stops looming in the next couple of laps, Pressy needs to go now or not at all.
Yeah, window opens this time by, but you're going to need a little bit of save to make it to the end, and especially if you've got a lot of push pass left, you're not going to want to be in that save mode. Pressy's the closest that he's been in a couple of laps here. Is he going to have a chance to the inside? He's going to have a look to the inside of turn number 7, but you just can't quite outbrake there and clear, which is what you need. Is maybe try and set up into this next one where we saw them have a battle a couple of laps ago. But it's going to be close one. You've got to make sure to not throw away your chance at a race win here. It's going to be pretty much a repeat. They're going to be side by side once again, and this time Pressy's going to have the grip on the edge. It is going to clear. but now has to try and run away with what's left of the life in those alternate compound tires to give himself that buffer. Coming to pit lane for the final stop of the race. We've got another battle further down the order. We've got Zach Mitchell on the rear of Nicholas's teammate, Bryce Saucier. And this one is on equal tires, equal life. The one difference these two drivers do have, that pushed pass number. Bryce Saucier has 41 seconds left. Zach Mitchell, I hope he's bound it to the wheel in his car, because he's still got all 200. I'm starting to wonder whether maybe the 69 is running with reduced power this time.
Laps winding down and one more pit stop on the horizon. Briley Wright briefly went off the racetrack and came back on. He runs in the top 12. Back with Mitchell. 3/10 behind Bryce Saucier. The fight for 6th and the fight for third continues with Pressy just ahead of Carmen Sienna. Half a second the gap between them. Nick Pressy pitting on lap 16, just like Carmen Sienna. Lily Pelletier-Sharp, she pitted on lap 14. Quick math will tell you she'll make it to approximately 22-23.
So all she needs.
It's all she needs. It's going to be really, really close. So we'll see if she can make it that far. But looking at this fight over here, man, and that was incredibly close there.
Saucier forced wide in turn number 1, just not quite getting it hooked up on entry. Zach Mitchell flies next to the wall to get the move done, and Saucier doesn't have a response trying to go down the inside of turn number 2. It's a risky move. He's going to maybe have another look into turn 7 at the hairpin, but again, you've got to be so much more on the terms of tires and the braking to be able to get that move done. He's going to back out of it, be sensible, as our lead is going to come. Touch Sawyer to start lap 23, Pelletier-Sharp is going to be down on pit lane for what is going to be her final stop of the race. She started on the alternate compound tire. Has done a great job making that work in the first stint. The question is she going to go for alternates to finish this race out for the final 7 laps, or is she going to play it safe and try and consolidate that second position on a set of primaries?
6 to go next time around. 8/10 the gap between Zach Mitchell and Bryce Saucier. Alyssa Sharp coming out of the pits with a 7.4 second stop, and around her the 77 of Macramini, now 7 seconds ahead in that 3rd position. Pelletier-Sharp running in the 4th position and chasing down what looks like George. That's not George Ward in the 36. That's another one of those pink not the pink cars, goodness. Is that George Ward in the 36, Liv? It's so difficult to tell these purple cars apart.
No, George Ward just has spin in Sunset that we've just caught. I believe that might have been the car of Sean Kirby that Pelletier-Sharp's gotten around. We had an instant for Carmen Sienna. We'll just jump back to that real quick. Sienna catching a meatball flag and luckily having a fast repair to clear it in this final pit stop. But wide through the Mon, is it going to be into the grass on the exit and into the tyre barrier? She's going to limp that home with a missing front right tyre, get into pit lane, fortunately get what is now a final stint on the alternate compound, but is now stuck behind Bryce Saucier in this other battle, as Zach Mitchell and Bryce Saucier are yet to pit. Sienna forced in early, and this just takes all the pressure off Nicholas Pressy, who has nothing to fight for, and Bryce Saucier has not given up this spot. Carmen Sienna playing a little bit of team games, I think, knowing that her battle is with the 94 in second place. They're on the same lap. This isn't a battle with a lap car. This is for position, just off cycle. And I think now we're going to see heavy use of the button. Gotta be careful, though, because Sienna down towards the final minute here. She's going to go to the inside. Saucier is going to leave plenty of room on the outside. Knows at that point that the move's done. Is not going to be able to force a mistake out of the 96. She's going to get through, but still has to work on Zach Mitchell as Matthias Marcamini comes in for his final stop. Nicholas Pressy actually has cleared that stop and is now running it in third, but 8 seconds now ahead of Carmen Sienna, whose mistake in Le Mans has maybe cost her a shot at that second place. But should still inherit no, actually just fall off the podium. That was the fight for that. Sawyer and Lily Pelletier Sharp now both out pit lane for their final stops, and Sawyer with a 7.6 second lead, both of those drivers on matching alternate compound tyres.
Approaching the final 5 laps of competition. Marcomini now to the inside, almost trying to hop that curb. Bryce Saucier on the outside, and they're going to go side by side. Saucier is going to hop the curb, and those two still pointed in the right direction despite a lot of bouncing and jiggling on that racetrack. The 07 of Saucier pulling away now from Marcomini, headed up through Le Mans and down that long almond straight on board with the 77. The Argentine now trying to get a great draft off the 07 down the long straight into the final sunset bend. Marcomini using the push to pass to the right hand side of the 07. And Saucier will just let him gently, kindly, wisely have the corner. And that looks like, is that Pelletier? No, that's not Pelletier. Sorry, that's behind
These
them.
two are both fighting for position. So Saucier had to let Matthias by, who had made his final stop. Eli Sasset with an opportunistic move there also gets around and takes the lead into the pit stop here. They are going to be racing on exit here. It could be about the launch. They get into the boxes. Eli Sasek just ahead, both up onto the jacks. We'll see what tyres they go for. Zach Mitchell ahead is going to pull out of pit lane. And it's going to be a good launch for Bryce Saucier. A slow stop for Eli Sasek. 6.8 for Saucier. And it'll give him that position back coming out of pit lane. Christina Ryan, the last car still to pit in this top 8. So it'll be that battle for P7 right now between Saucier and Sasek. And Saucier, after losing it in the final corner, retakes it on pit road.
4 to go this time by. Tucker Sawyer has turned this race on its head. He has a 7.8 second gap over Lily Pelletier Sharp, both pitting after lap 22. They're good. Well, yeah, they are good to go to the end. I was going to say they definitely have enough fuel to make it. Now, still looking at Saucier and Sasek. The 07 just sits ahead of that number 9. And they're going to just briefly exchange positions into that right-hander. The track starts to narrow here, and any contact could be just fatal for either of these drivers. So they're going to be heading through Tower, Bishop, and then to Le Mans. They continue to battle for that 8th position, and Liv Pressy goes purple. 3rd place, Nick Pressy, 140.77. Christina Mitchell and Zach Ryan now getting close. They are fewer than half a second apart.
Yeah, and this is a battle, a move on the straightaway from Bryce Saucier there. Ultimately, Eli Sasek has a massive amount more push to pass, but aggression from Bryce Saucier, that looked a little bit maybe over the line. He knows he's a sitting duck with all of his push to pass used already. Eli Sasek burning button down to 100 seconds left, but with 4 laps to go, it'll be plenty. Can he just defend on the outside line from Bryce Saucier from a dive into turn number 2? Saucier's behind. He's going to go for the look, but ultimately, after a very aggressive defense from the 07, Eli Sasek is going to pull away and is going to try and now pull that gap. Pelletier Shop out of push pass. Bryce Saucier out of push pass. Eli Sasek continuing to use it to try and defend and to pull that gap from the 07. I think Nicholas Pressy, probably that 140, was using a heavy helping of it as the entire field, with the exception of George Ward, goes to the alternates to finish out this race.
Pressy still quickest with 140.7 on the clock. Evan Eisenman with an issue there, and that's 16th place. Eisenman, he looks like he just lost control of his Indy car, and he continues to keep it moving in the right direction. No harm, no foul. Tucker Sawyer goes green. He continues to go faster, 1:41.19. And after that second pit stop, it became his race without even trying, and barring a mistake, car number 19 is going to come away with this victory. But of course, there's still more than 2 laps to go, and anything is possible in racing. Back to that 7th place fight, Liv. It's only 7/10 from Sasek back to Saucier.
Yeah, of course, Saucier with a heavy-handed defense the previous couple of laps. The problem he's going to run into is that he just doesn't have that available push to pass to work with. You have 200 seconds. Everyone gets the same amount. They can use it however they deem fit. And unfortunately, he has just burnt it very quickly. Sasek has 90 seconds left, a minute and a half to use over these final 3 laps. And Saucier just doesn't have the power to get close up again. The only really issue would be if Sasek has to manage the tyres a little bit, but they're on equal tyre life, and it's only a 6-lap run to the end for these 2 drivers. So I imagine the number 9 will do a great job holding on to that one, and this battle is going to simmer out as that Ascent Racing driver walks away as we come towards Tower. Gap now up to 1.3.
White flag out next time by for the 19 of Tucker Sawyer. Drivers almost sorted out after this final stint, and what started approximately 45 minutes ago with Alyssa Pelletier Sharp in strong contention to lead. Who's gone around at the end? It's Carmen Sienna, Mitchell Semedo have both had incident. Is that the 96? That is indeed the 96. She gets loose out of that final corner, flies into the air. And where does Mitchell Semedo come in all this? It looks like a separate incident, but that green MSR machine going through the final corner, and the uneven concrete did the same, although Semedo much luckier not to hit anything. Sienna, on the other hand, just lost control out of that final corner, and that's going to be it for her race, barring any fast repairs she may have remaining. And
I think she's already used her fast repair. I think that is going to be day done. We'll see.
That's it.
What happened to Mitchell Semedo as the number 8 here comes through the final corner as well. Has a moment much earlier and is going to find, luckily, no barrier. Very close to an incident for the number 8, but avoids the fate that Carmen Sienna befell. Carmen Sienna, of course, out of the car. Her day's going to be done. She's going to fall out of the top 10 here. But on the white flag lap, Tucker Sawyer with a 9.2 second lead is even a light on the button to try and go for a fastest lap, get himself a perfect weekend. Does not look like it. Gonna play it safe. Let Pressy have those points in the 94. He's got 10 seconds to shot behind. We were doing a photo on the battle that Mark Meany was having with Carmen Sienna, but that unfortunately is not going to go to the checkered flag. It is going to be drivers just getting through to the end of the race here, and with half a lap to go, what else can you say other than a fantastic strategic drive from Tucker Sawyer? Letting Sharp have the glory early. 29-lap race, it'll be 16 by the time he takes checkered flag that he's led. Let Sharp have the early running, let himself do the fuel save behind, and then on the overcut, use that button, use that additional power, and flew away to never be seen again. Out of Le Mans, through the Ullman Straight. One last corner to take it, Sawyer.
29 laps about to be completed, and what started for Tucker Sawyer as a pole run will also end up as a number 1 position finish. Car 19 out of the Sunset Bend will shake down the straight. He wins the opening round of ABN Champ Car at Sebring. Lily Pelletier Sharp with a little bit of contact out of that final corner, just makes it across the line without incident. And Brooklyn's Nick Pressy One more turn for him. The Brooklyn driver will safely and conservatively drive out of the sunset bend to collect his bronze medal. Tucker Sawyer gets the win with a 10-second advantage over Lily Pelletier-Sharp. Nick Pressey in third. And that's going to be our podium, fans. Don't go anywhere. We're going to gather our top three in just a moment. It's Sawyer, Pelletier-Sharp, Pressey. We'll be back in a minute with our podium. On the podium with our top three, starting with our pole winner. And what a dominant performance. Tucker Sawyer, we talked to you almost an hour ago when you ended up securing that pole. And here we are now. You're on the top step of the podium again after what started as a very dominant performance from LPS, Lily Pelletier-Sharp. What did you do to change your race after that second stint? And now you're sitting here with a win.
It was tough. I had to work for it, that was for sure. Nicholas made it hard to pass, so I was like, I'm just gonna sit back and fuel save a little bit. Ended up working out. And then I got behind Lily, and I'm like, I just gotta keep the car clean, so I fuel saved some more, and my strategy ended up working out perfectly. Put out a 10-second gap. So pretty much a perfect race by me. I don't think I could have done anything different there.
Unbelievable performance just from the second half of that race on. And now Homestead coming up next week, that Miami Grand Prix at Homestead Miami Speedway. Are you a fan of the ovals, and will you get 2 wins in a row?
I'm not really an oval guy. I've had really bad luck with ovals, especially in the Indy cars. So I doubt I'll get a win there, but if I get a win, hey, I'm not gonna complain. But
Correct.
yeah, I'll have to put some preparation into that.
For sure. Congratulations on what you've got tonight, and we'll see you in a week at Homestead.
Yep, thank you.
Liv, you've got our second place finisher, Lily Pelletier-Sharp.
I sure do. Lily, this is Olivia in the ABN booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, I do.
So obviously qualifying on the front row of the grid there in that one, going for the alternate tires on that initial race start. Talk us through how well that worked for you and how you made that start watch take the lead into turn one.
So qualifying was a mess. I was dealing on my what was supposed to be my main runs on the primaries. My wheel shutting off just because it likes to be different sometimes. So ults were really just I mean, I did a lap in map 8 in the primaries.
Oh,
So
goodness.
ults were the last ditch effort in quali just to salvage a good start. Messed up a chance of pole in sector 3 going through Le Mans. Start I been working on my double clutch starts, so it gave me the launch I needed to get the lead into turn 1. Messed up the strategy. First time not really controlling my own strategy. I was called into the pits 1 lap early, which meant I had to save to even make the targets for the next 2 stints, which is what cost me the main time to Tucker, and I think what ultimately lost me the race.
Well, still a solid points haul here. Second place laps led, as well as not forget. And we stay in Florida for a trip next week over to Homestead Miami Speedway. How are you feeling about the return to that track and your chance on the ovals?
Daddy ass sucks. If we could have a, but it's just going to be about main track position there, because the Daddy air is going to affect you a bit too much for you really to have any close racing. So it's just going to be a long, drawn out strategy. It's going to win you the race there.
And of course, before you head off, any shout-outs, any sponsors? I know you're with a new team now of NPM, so the floor is yours. Congratulations.
Yeah, Nick for bringing me on to MPM. The Gearcat's not really running races this year. It was an opportunity. All the sponsors on the car, Demon Tweaks, Ring Taxi, Turn 1, and of course my dad's photography company. That's it.
Well, thank you for joining us, and like ships passing the night, we'll bring in the team boss for a third place interview.
Yeah.
Pressy, sat right next to your new driver, a double podium for the team, and of course a third place finish for you in this one. Congratulations! Talk us through how that one went for you.
So we've been going through a lot of prep for the last couple weeks, trying to get the team up to speed for Sebring. And one of our biggest priorities was bolstering our road course side of affairs. So we brought Lily on doubly to improve our road course standing as is right now, with the potential for more improvement with someone that honestly would probably be better at teaching the road course side of these cars than me. To our less proficient drivers, that isn't to say they're great though. You know, we had a really good day today. We were running through a whole lot of strategies before today's race. I think we had 7 or 8 different plans we could have gone with. We all pretty much did our own thing with we had a lot of options. Lily took what turned out to be the best of them, starting on the reds. I was a bit more hesitant because I don't trust red tires, but you know, she really made it work out there tonight. Shame we couldn't get the win though, but a 2-3 finish. I honestly, I'm more than happy to take that home.
And like I said to Lily, staying in Florida for next week, how are you feeling about taking on the oval challenge there at Homestead Miami Speedway?
Absolutely terrible, but I think Bryce is really strong there. So, you know, we'll be looking to him for a fair bit of counsel on that. You know, we had a lot of fun today, you know, getting ready for this race. So I think we're in for a lot of I think we're in for a lot of success if getting ready for the next race is as fun as it was getting ready for this one.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, congratulations, double podium for the team. Any shout outs, any sponsors? Floor's yours. Congratulations.
I'd like to shout out new drivers to the team, Lily and Colin. You know, you can always say no to joining a team. You can always say no to join. You can definitely always say no to joining my team, but you know, Those two, they were definitely open to it, and you know, it's the change has been palpable, really, this whole time. It's been such a blast so far. I'd like to thank Drip Diecast and Collectibles for sponsoring my machine again this year. I'd like to thank you and Rick for putting on a good show, Carmen for putting on a good league.
Well, thank you, and wish you all the best of luck next time out at Homestead.
Thank you.
Fans at home, that's going to do it for 29 laps of competition from Sebring. What a way to start the season, and what a dominant performance by Tucker Sawyer. Next week, if you don't know, now you do. We're going to be at Homestead, and it's going to be Indy cars at the Oval. Get ready for that. Miami 300, as we're calling it, at the Homestead Miami Speedway next Wednesday, March 5, right here on the Aero Broadcast Network. Fantastic start to our season, and we hope to see you there as well. Follow us for more on ABN Studios at Twitter. Follow us here on Twitch at ABN Studios as well. For Liv, Hayward, Carmen, Sienna, and the entire ABN crew, I'm Rick James. We will see you all around the corner.